The Bible. Is it hard to understand?
When it comes to reading the Bible, the first thing that comes to mind is the fact that this is the Word of God.
The seals have been broken, and the truth is here.
And when we go throughout the scriptures, when we go throughout extra biblical records, we find that the language that God employed, that He used to create the heavens and the earth, was the Hebrew language.
Christ said, I came for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. But yet no one, no religious leader, no religious church out there anywhere can now identify the 12 tribes of Israel. Can we? God is quite simple, but it seems as if man makes understanding Him hard.
What are those mysteries?
The truth of your book and the truth will make you free. The Hebrew and Bible Academy, you're invited.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies.
Spies everywhere looking at us, everyone. They will stand on our own and rise from the dust. Satellites on our every move, send those zombies, drop bones awake home. We coming soon. It's gonna take some faith. A voice said, go that way. They're coming in all black any day to try to take us away. Yeah, yeah. What if you were told to go and leave all you had behind? To prepare a better place, knowing what's coming down the line. What if it's time to go, before they come knock down the door, take you away in the early morn? You're gone, what if? All seeing our illuminati
Shalom, shalom.
populate because the war is ramping up, and MJ told us once. All I wanna say is that they don't really care about us. So it's gonna take some faith. They're coming any day. It's time for us to break our chains and prepare to walk away. Yeah. What if you were told to go and leave all you had behind to prepare a better place?
Shalom,
Knowing
shalom.
what's coming down the line. What if it's time to go?
It's time to go.
Or come knock down the door, take you away in the early morn. You're gone, what if? But what if you embrace your defender instead of waiting to surrender? What if you found that you've been cold and awakened from sleep to fight a great conspiracy?
So what if you know now that you've been called and awakened from sleep to fight a great conspiracy? What if you were told to go and leave all you had behind to prepare a better place, knowing what's coming down the line? What if it's time to go before they come knock down your door and take you away in the early morning? You're gone. What if? Man, are we living in some times? I'm Elder Ricard Shar, the Gathering of Christ Church, here with our weekly Patreon update. We're going to segue right over into Patreon quickly. That's right, with the phone lines open. The phone lines will be open immediately. And we're just following up from our broadcast last night. There's many people who were waiting on the line with the sister in particular who said she was experiencing some strange activity with her daughter delivering her grandchild in the hospital. It seems as if we're going through some tough times from the medical side of things in this earth today. It seems as if it to some degree, you can't go and get regular service for health or anything else unless being under some level of duress, threat, or whatever the case might be. And I thought that that would be a perfect segue into the broadcast today. Of course, I said last night that we would have Dr. Truman Burst, master herbologist, on today to answer some questions. But I tried to reach him, and right now it's hard to be reached. Right now he's in the West Indies. It could be a connection scenarios with the phones, but if he call in at any time during this broadcast, we'll be sure to bring him in so that you can at least ask some of the questions you need as far as understanding natural health. But since we're going to segue off of that, based on not being able to connect with him, we'll try to make sure he's here next week. But all in all, I did prepare something for our Patreon discussion. Mental illness or demon possession will be our discussion today. And it dovetails from our broadcast last night. One moment. One second. I'm wearing about 1 billion hats, or 1 billion Mitris right now. Excuse me. All right. Yeah. It dovetails off of our discussion last night with the rainbow and all that's going on in the earth. It seems as if there's an onslaught, a mental assailing of our people, of all people who want to do right, as if Satan opened the gates of hell against all that's right on earth, or the few that are left holding the fort. And I hope that that's us, you brothers and sisters out there, holding the fort against all evil, and they're seeking to open the floodgates to destroy us using tactics. What tactics? Well, our conversation today on Patreon: mental illness or demon possession, are they one and the same according to the Bible's perspective of what we would call demon possession? Okay, and we're going to talk about that, because if that's so, it's time to break out and come to some level of resolve. Thank you. I appreciate that, brother. I'm going to talk to you soon, right? My brother. It's time to come to some resolve together on how that's affecting us as a whole, as a people, and as individuals. If in fact mental illness, according to the Bible, is some form of demon possession, why are we allowing these things, or these terms like mental illness, why are we allowing these terms to be normalized? Why aren't we seeking permanent cures? Okay? From trauma and from all the things that lead to mental illness diagnosis. Okay? I'm not a doctor. So my view is strictly through a Bible's view only. Okay? I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a psychologist. None of that. See, but the Bible is cut and dry. It doesn't mess around. Okay? Just because someone is functional, it doesn't mean they aren't demon possessed. And I believe that Satan have cultivated a system where there's totally normalized demon-possessed people who are successful and influential, okay, within our society. So now what we must do is say, regardless of all of this, right, it still should be recognized demon possession. Why? Because Satan is using demon possession as a tool, as a weapon, a form of control. And in a nutshell, I can break it down to you before segueing over. And then I'll drop on you, brothers and sisters, some of the topics we'll be discussing live over the phone. 515-605-9327. See it right there. So why is it important we understand that demon possession, if it is, or some mental illnesses back in biblical times would have been deemed demon possession? Well, if there's a cut and dry understanding of what demon possession looks like, now we can begin to self-help ourselves by identifying some of those traits or actions that were deemed demon possession in the Bible, and see if any of our behaviors parallel or contrast those particular behavioral scenarios from biblical times. Okay? Suppose you found out that denial was a demon. Understand what I'm saying. The laws of the Bible are clearly defined. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not lie. Thou shalt not. Thou shalt not. Suppose every shalt not came with a demon. So that means you could easily self-correct and recognize there's something opposing one or ourselves within us. This is why I believe to some degree the top Satanists or scientists in the earth have made it where there's functional demon activity. People, functional people, influential people, respected people, right? But still filled with demons. Let me give an example. One more, going back to the law, of why it's important to understand the difference between the two and not confuse the two. Listen to me clearly. Use denial as an example. Denial is a demon, right? Any thou shalt not is a demon, right? Let's look at it from that perspective for one moment. Now, some people are going to say, well, many people are in denial for many reasons. They just don't want to accept the reality. The reality could be too grim. It doesn't matter how you explain it off. Denial is a lie. It's one of the worst lies because you're not just lying to others, you're lying to yourself. In denial, understand this, one who's in a state of denial or in standstill until it's realized that something is wrong. But if you deny that something is wrong, why fix it? So denial in itself is a lie. Regardless of how one psychologize or try to explain it off, or it doesn't matter how much they philosophize or even try to explain it off with the reasons of why they're in denial, right? I'm just using that as an example. Mental illnesses, some of them would have been deemed demon possession. And I'm going to talk about that today. I'm going to also talk about today, when it talks about Esau being the cunning hunter. Well, if he's the hunter, we must figure out who's the hunted? And how are we being hunted? If in case we are the hunted. See? If he's the cunning hunter, right? Think about it. Who's the hunted? Okay? So, and I'm going to use the framework of illnesses, be it physical illnesses or psychological illnesses, as the basis we discuss this from. Suppose there's a trusted institution or institutions within our society that none of us can do anything about, because why? It's needed. But yet through that trusted institution, we're hunted. We're hunted. And we're going to deal with it from the physical standpoint and also the psychological standpoint to understand how to do what? How to navigate through this. Now, one other thing before I go over into Patreon. Another reason I will state, brothers and sisters, why it's important to understand or know what demon possession looks like. Well, think about this. One must understand the order of rank. The order of rank in the celestial, as well as the order of rank when it comes to the falling spirits who control societies. There is an order to their chaos. So why is demon possession important? Put it this way. Why is demon possession to the elite and those who control an important component for society? Why is it? Mental illness, sicknesses, trauma. Why is that so important for them? Well, in the spiritual realm, folks, and guess what? Witches and warlocks operate under this pathology, and I'm going to call it a pathology. When they do their spells and all these other things, they're doing it according to a ranking system of spirits or angels, fallen angels they worship. Right? So, if there's ranking orders when it comes to spirits, these witches or warlocks understand that a person must be under the power of one of these spirits in order for the witch or the warlock to have any level of control over them. Either to help or hurt a person. Okay? So it's important we understand and rid ourselves of spirits, because the witches and warlocks dealing with the ranking orders, if you're under one of these spirits, you're easily controlled by the dark side. So that's right. So it's in their advantage. It's in their interest, the satanic powers that be, to have a satanic, possessed, riddled with demon society. This is how so few people can control so many. So suppose, just guessing, that mental illness and trauma, suppose it has been socially engineered, deeply ingrained within our society so that you can be controlled as an individual without even knowing you're controlled. Folks, hence the reason why they hate the truth of the Bible and the Israelites so much. Because the Bible gives you clearly defined laws, a moral line to what's right and what's wrong. without explanation. Here's what's right. Here's what's wrong. If you deal with what's right, the demons have no power over you. Therefore, the powers that be who control the demons have no power over you. And we're going to talk about that because I believe that there's institutions in place, trusted institutions, that thrives off of demon possession, off of those who are ill, be it physical or spiritual. I believe it's engineered. There's a book under psychiatry called the DSM-5. And with this book, so-called experts gives an update to what the new or the newest, I would say, mental illness is from one year to the next. It's called the DSM-5. There's a book, and the psychiatrists and psychologists, they all get together and say, well, there's a new mental illness. Let's add this in a book. Let's put this in a book and let's study this. Right? DSM-5. Right? In this book, there's bipolar, there's sociopaths, the makeup of a sociopath, all these different psychological makeups, right? A narcissist, they determine these particular behaviors without in of itself saying, well, without telling us that there's a spiritual component to that the Bible might be able to identify as a demon possession. In particular, since we were in so-called Pride Month, some of you might be shocked that decades ago, in the DSM-5, the same people who are diagnosing normal people today, when I say normal people, straight people. Who knows what normal is anyway today, right? But anyway, decades ago in the DSM-5, the act of homosexuality was deemed a mental illness under psychiatrists, under the psychiatry book of DSM-5, that they believed, according to that psychiatry analysis, that someone who has a desire towards another sex or feel to be a different type of person or gender, that there was something psychologically wrong, according to how, that's right, of how they deemed mental illness back then. But it changes. And to some degree, it moves and changes more so towards what society would normally accept. Back then, decades ago, it wasn't normally accepted. It was deemed mental illness. But now, since so many of the population have accepted certain behaviors that have dictated to some degree, right, a need to change from the view of psychology. And this is why I'm saying it's so important to understand, and weigh the psyche and all that through the Bible. And that's what being a Bible believer is. We can't serve two masters. We can't take on the diagnosis and operate and all that under what they're saying and not weigh it if you're a person who believes in God and Christ. And you can't be on both sides of the fence. If you're on the Bible side, we weigh everything through the law, what's right or wrong according to the law, and or the demon possession that enters man or woman for not following it. That's how we deal with this. Okay? The powers that be diagnose things after the trauma and gives you a title based on what? Based on the examination, based on the tests they do, based on you sitting on the couch telling them where the trauma came in, right? And then, of course, the doctors, they help a lot of people too. I'm not going to say they don't, but at least they can give you a diagnosis That's right, to understand the behavior that would lead to self-correction from the world standpoint. Well, the Bible gives us what? You got it. It gives us the sin, the actions we do through sin that leads to demon possession. Okay? So it points out the demon so that we could self-correct and cure our souls, our spirit. Why am I going here today? 515-605-9327. Why am I going here today? Well, let me show you what's on the docket. Let's show you what's on the docket. Number one, this is not alleged. I have videos. Jada Pinkett Smith, influenced families' psychedelic drug use, son says. So Jaden, this is not alleged. This is quotes from Jaden, and we're going to go into that. Where Jada Pinkett Smith influenced families' psychedelic drug use, son Jaden says. Now, that's what her son went on record with. That it was influenced. Now, when you do research from the book, the Voynich manuscript, the Voynich manuscript is an old record of ancient drugs, psychedelics that had their origin from the tree of good and evil that have been used since ancient Babylon unto our present time to control an overpopulated, or what they would deem an overpopulated, condensed society. Where demons come in. So many people are looking at these children, good-looking children, and as they grew, brothers and sisters, people out there didn't say anything, but there was, private conversations at barbecues and others stating where if these came up, the Smiths, oh yeah, they're talented. Will Smith is talented. But then there would be some, backyard conversation of what's going on with these kids. This is something weird going on there. What are they? What is their household like? So we would have these conversations privately, What's going on with these children? They're growing weird. We feel for them. We must pray for them. Is demons involved? We're going to talk about that. We're going to go into that. Here's the video where it's being normalized to some degree, fair use.
Let's do all the drugs.
I don't really want to.
Should have thought of that before you drink a can full of ecstasy.
What?
Now, it's not just Hollywood.
We're going to talk about how it's being normalized. So you have to realize television, when it was first created, was a form, folks, of university. It was a form of university because don't forget, coming out of chattel slavery, building into the industrial complex, you didn't have a lot of people going to schools like that outside of the elite's children. So in order to program the people and educate them to progress them into the industrial complex, they came up with TV. It used to, don't forget, they understood that the University of Television puts the viewer in a what? In a passive, acceptable state to be programmed. Hence the reason it's called program. So, as long as it's normalized and joked about, they can just take away another mental illness out of the DSM-5 since the world accept being ill.
Let's do all the drugs.
I don't really want to.
Should have thought of that before you drink a can full of ecstasy.
Now, for a kid who don't know what these drugs are, we'll go look it up. I'm going to talk about that. That's the mental part of it. I'm going to also deal with this. There was a brother who was in a car accident. He was in a car accident. And what happened? Fair use.
Put that joint on your leg out. All right, so listen.
He was tagged.
Go ahead.
Allergic.
You record it.
They say
I want to I got in the car.
Where the other one at? On your
Right here. I got in the car.
He ripped the stuff out of him and ran out of the hospital.
All right, so,
Put it on there. Is that the same one?
yeah. I got in a car accident. Right?
He got in a car accident. These are his words.
Healthy. Perfectly healthy.
He said he was perfectly healthy. Nothing was wrong with him.
They rushed me to the hospital. I'm laying on the bed. They sedated me. They put tubes in me, in my arm, my neck, in my throat. Everything they did all that. I'm asleep. I'm in a hard sleep. But I can hear and see everything, but I can't move. I hear the nurse say, I don't know how he's still here. I shot him 3 times.
That's all I'm going to say right here. That's all I'm going to say right here. But I had to bring this up. The hunted is being hunted by the hunter. And it's about time we understand how they're hunting. For the sister who called in and couldn't give her full experience with her daughter and grandbaby, I need you to call in because at Patreon, this is where some of this can be discussed. Last but not least, we're going to also play this. What did Kanye West say?
Media outlets are not usually in the business of ignoring remarkable things, but they did. And what he posted was a picture of a text exchange that he had had with Harley Pasternak.
I'm going to help you one of a couple ways. First, you and I sit down and have a loving and open conversation, but you don't use cuss words. And everything that is discussed is based in fact, and not some crazy stuff that dumb friend of yours told you or you saw in a tweet. Second option, I have you institutionalized again where they medicate the crap out of you and you go back to zombie land forever. Play date with the kids just won't be the same. They wanted to medicate me every day. You realize, like, they could have just switched to medication and I wouldn't be here. And on the news, they would have said it was because of a mental issue. Every time they say I'm crazy, it's just when I'm saying the truth. So what's the crazy part, really?
So I believe, even though they have psychiatric books like the DSM-5 and others, it's starting to look like that regardless of what the Bible deems as crazy or demon possession, it's not determined clinically that way. But if the media says you're crazy, you're crazy. If the media says that Michael Jackson and put out speculation that Michael Jackson did some level of child touching, then it's so. If the media says you are a criminal, right? So now the media determines who's demon possessed according to the Bible or what's clinically correct. And when did they get the moral high ground to determine illnesses and or sicknesses? Now, as you can tell, I'm very careful on how I speak Some of my conversation here on YouTube is almost broken from one sentence to the next, and it's intentional. If I was to come out and say exactly what's going through my mind, eloquently, sharp, easy to be understood, we would lack a channel today. But I think you all get the gist. I think you all get the gist. And now I'm going over to a place where I can actually talk freely to free the minds of our people, and so that our people in the spirit of Christ, God in Christ, can help themselves. Can help themselves. Because I believe in the world of perpetual sicknesses, if someone takes on the spirit of being sick and is labeled sick without any level of solution or cure at the end of this, that makes a person perpetually dependent on someone else for the rest of their lives, or some type of solution, or some type of, I would say, if you believe that everything people are telling you, you're going to be dependent on what they prescribe and what they suggest, making you totally a prisoner to a diagnosis. See, Christ came to free us from sicknesses. He came to free us from mental illness. He didn't make it we were bound to the priest and the priestesses, the witches and the warlocks and the government of Rome from cradle to grave. So we're going to see if we can identify some of these sicknesses out there. What demons are they? And then have it where brothers and sisters can admit, okay, this is my issue. I've taken on this demon, and now through Christ, I can rid myself of a spirit that have attached itself to me. Okay? I will no longer protect it. And I will no longer identify with it. I will separate the spirit that God made in me that was pure from the beginning from the demon that attached himself to me. Be it through my trauma, be it through how I was raised, be it through someone, a grown person, taking advantage of me, someone hurting me, whatever it was, at that moment, a door opened and attached itself to me, and I've been sick ever since. And if that's the case, Christ have given me the moment to open that door, to not let something enter, but to kick something out. To rid myself. Because, hey, the whole thing is, folks, you'll be surprised how many traumatic things that happens in our lives leads to it showing itself in the physical as sicknesses. And I'm only speaking from a biblical perspective here. A biblical perspective. Doctors can look at things after it has already happened and diagnose it and try to fix the symptoms. That's their job. They do a great job at it. But what about the spiritual preventive measures that the Most High had in place since the beginning? So it's time to free ourselves, and I want to talk about that in our broadcast. I see guys out there like Kanye West. He's fighting against the demons that entered. It's a problem to them because now he's able to articulate it. He's able to articulate his struggles with the camera rolling. That those that are calling him crazy, that's right. Kanye West's explanation is, the people who are calling me crazy are doing crazy things to me. Who's crazy? And then we have these people the trusted matriarchy. What would have happened if Jaden would have said, brothers and sisters, that Will Smith influenced my family to do psychedelics? What is this thing in our society where women can do cruel things as mothers and affect their children like this without any pushback at all? If this would have been Will Smith, and I'm not making no excuses for him either, because what man allowed this to happen, I sure would like to find out one day what this woman know that's keeping Will Smith at bay. Who would allow this to happen to their children? But if this was Will Smith, the original premise, the first thing would have came up, Me Too and everything else. How can you push psychedelics with a young girl in the house? All these different entertainment parties you're having amongst these so-called elites of Hollywood, and some of the weird things, actions we've heard out of Hollywood. How can you expose your daughter to this? How can you do this? So, suppose your daughter get violated. What type of man would do this is what we would be hearing. Will Smith would probably be sharing a cell right now with R. Kelly. And I need to really find out, I need brothers and sisters to explain this to me. How can the child admit that they were heavily influenced at a young age to do psychedelics by their own mother, and society, without society going after this grown adult? Why? Why are they free to destroy the next generation of our generation of children? And this is not a small deal, folks. Y'all don't understand the history of psychedelics. You have no idea. Each psychedelic, according to the Voynich manuscript, comes with a demon. There's a good side of it as far as the stimulation of the senses, including the brain to some degree. That's the good side of it, the temporal stimulation of spiritual activity in your extremities. How it makes you feel, how things taste, how you can see better, how you can concentrate, think, meditate longer until the high wears off. But it comes with a trade-off. There's a demon attached to it, and that demon attaches itself to you. And the demon is saying, feed me, feed me, feed me, feed me, feed me. That's all I can say right now on this platform, brothers and sisters. But I'm going to be talking about this. Let's go over to Patreon. Let's open up the calls right from the gate, and we're going to talk about this. Mental illnesses or demon possessions. All right? And understand what Christ called us to do. Hence the reason the synagogue of Satan hates Jesus Christ, or Yeshua in the Hebrew. They hate him. They hate him. Why? I'm going to show you why. That's us in Egypt there. That's us in Egypt right there. Let me put that away. And this is why they hate Jesus or Christ. They hated the disciples. Matthew 10:5-6 reads, 10:1 reads, and when he had called unto him his 12 disciples, he gave them power against unclean spirits, to cast them out and to heal all manner of sicknesses and disease. Folks, that's the first. Folks, listen to me. Listen to me clearly. That's the first verse of the 10th chapter. When he began to give the disciples their mission. Now, why the first verse? The first thing he stated for them to have power over were the unclean spirits, heal all manner of sicknesses and all diseases. You know why? Because the Roman sages, priests and priestesses, witches and warlocks could control our people through the sicknesses, because sicknesses were synonymous with demon possession. And what Christ was teaching the disciples to teach others is that the power of the mind through the Holy Spirit is a healing component within itself. When you take on the sicknesses and identify with it and say, I'm sick, that's right, folks. That's when your mind attaches itself and you begin to acquiesce and you become the sickness. When it should never be a time where any of us accept staying sick or being sick. We have to understand sicknesses is from the outside. And Christ understood it. If we take on the sicknesses, then we're controlled by those who created them. Under the ranking order of spirits, now you're sick and you're at the behest of the priesthood. You're controlled through government. Let's go over, open up the calls. I know my man, my brothers and sisters, Andre and others are going to come on. And I know Andre, he's in the healthcare field, and I would like to hear from him today. I have Truman. I'm waiting for him to call in. And folks, you don't understand how we're being controlled. You don't understand how we're being controlled. Why do you think they attack our channel for no reason a couple of weeks ago? Because we're here to free your minds. We're here to let you know. Listen, whenever something happens that's true, folks, or someone gives you an analysis of yourself or criticism or say something that you know is true concerning yourself or an individual, when we get defensive, because what they're saying is true, if we get defensive, it's not the initial spirit the Most High put in us getting offended. See? When we defend the demon, that's identifying that there's something else that entered. Right? We're defending. We're thinking we're protecting ourselves, but no, we're protecting what has attached itself to us. And this is why the Bible says, confess your faults. If you can see it and I know it's true, I admit it. That's who I am. That's what I've done. I'm not going to deny it. I'm not going to defend a spirit that everyone else can see. And therefore, if I admit the spirit exists, then there's work I can do to rid myself of it. Folks, this is why they hated Christ. Because by default, they use demons to control people in their absence. They don't have to be around you to control you. They know exactly what demon or sickness that's in you. And by default, that's right, under the ranking spirits, they can control you thousands of miles away. That's on the physical side of sicknesses and the spiritual or the mental side of sicknesses. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that today, right? So hold tight. It's 4 o'clock. I can only do about 30, 40 minutes on the other side. So I'm going to open up the phones immediately. See you all on Patreon. Patreon.com/AGathering144. I want to be out of this no later than 5:15 to enjoy the rest of my day before the Sabbath comes in. May the Most High be with you. Stay prayed up. Sin not. We will soon see Zion and And brothers and sisters, I hope that you are a part of this Hebrew and Bible Academy, Archaeology and History. You don't want to miss this, Tracing the Serpent Seed, week 2. Okay, archaeological proof in history that the Bible is true. And week 2 is going to be like nothing you've seen before when it comes to the history of how the gods came to earth. Okay, so hold tight. I'll see you all on Patreon. Patreon.com/AGathering144. Bless you.
What if you were told to go and leave all you had behind to prepare a better place, knowing what's coming down the line? What if it's time to go before we come knocking down the door? Take you away in the early morning. You're gone. What if you were told to go and leave all you had behind to prepare a better place, knowing what's coming down the line? What if it's time to go before they come knocking down the door? Take you away in the early morning. You're gone. What if?
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order.
Bush kept said, and it's a phrase that I often use myself, that we needed a new world order.